everyone used to build their e-commerce platforms and go, well, I'll just connect it with my bank that I do my internet banking for my business on. Like, why wouldn't you do that today?
Good question. I mean, legacy retailers only had that option back when e-commerce started, with a few payment providers that were part of the banks. Now today, there's so many different payment options. Banks are still very much legacy with their processing, so what to speak, and the technology. So what we encompass here at Ecommpay is a full stack relating to payments, right? So that's everything from card processing to orchestration, which is essentially being able to connect with multiple payment providers, tokenization for security, recurring billing, which will include subscriptions and direct debit. So it's really in harnessing that all within one now, which is really where we shine. Whereas if you wanted to go down the legacy route, that's going to be a lot of friction with multiple API connections, multiple costs, multiple account managers, multiple stresses, potentially, right? An infinite world of potential issues. Whereas if you're doing that for a singular API, one account manager, one platform, that's really going to reduce operational cost and friction.
Well, it sounds as if like the world of payment has become bigger than just here, put your card details in, and off you go. So if you were an e-commerce store owner today, what kind of things should you be looking out for from a payment provider?
And that's really key what you just said there. So the aim in payments is to continue having that pull as a consumer. That's all you should think about, and that's all you need to know. And that's the only thing you need to do is enter your card details. But we kind of go one step further now, right? And that's not even having to put your card details in through wallets like Google and Apple Pay. So if you're an e-commerce provider, right, Apple and Google Pay must. There's so many out there now still not doing that. I'm sure you, Chris, as well as myself, will get frustrated at a checkout if, maybe we're on the train. I know we travel a lot, and you want to purchase something. I don't know, maybe like for me, some dog food for Amazon, um, on your way back, and you don't have, your wallet is in the back of your bag. You don't want to get it out. You just want to be able to put Apple Pay, Google Pay. A new one to market is called Click to Pay, which is MasterCard and Amex and Visa come together and they've created their own wallet, which is all based around tokenization and secureness for the consumer as well as the merchant. But then the second point I must add to that is open banking. So we may have all seen this now as a rise with some merchants called pay to bank, typically pay by bank, sorry. And that will allow you to essentially, like you said it originally, why can't we just pay through a bank? And that's exactly that. It's being able to send an online bank transfer without needing to input the sort code and account numbers and all that messy stuff, which we do as maybe, individuals with our friends, right? And that's got a lot easier now, right, with mobile numbers and whatnot. And plus, it kind of removes a lot of risk for a merchant, right? So they don't have a chargeback because of the secureness of it now. And that payment had to be authorized to be made. So there's no fraudulent activity happening there. And also, it's even cheaper than a card acquiring cost.
Oh wow! Well, I mean, I've not even heard that existed. So
Yeah.
can that be as frictionless as Apple Pay then?
Essentially so, right? The great thing with Apple Pay is that it's typically all within the same UI. And with open banking and pay by bank, it's essentially the same. The only thing that will be different is you'll be redirected to your banking app, which you would then select which account, if you have multiple accounts with that bank, which one you'd like to pay with. You press pay, and it will then send you back to that order confirmation page. So
So
yes, one step process more, but it's about that security, right? And that's the user journey that we need to understand within payments. Is it's not just about how can I get my money as a merchant, it's also how can I make my consumers feel safe purchasing with us and making sure that they have the payment delivered to us so that we can dispatch the goods.
Yeah. So what's the difference in sort of processing like fees for that? Because I know some when I've looked into like card payments before, there's like wide varieties of stuff, and people are trying to take their slice of the pie. Is it much cheaper to do that?
Um, it's slightly cheaper, so the reason why it will be slightly cheaper is that we're kind of bypassing the traditional card network, right? The Visa, the Amex, the Mastercard. So there's typically two pricing models within payments. You have a blended rate, which is what you'll see where it's maybe 2% plus 10p per transaction, right? And that's no matter what the basket value is, no matter how many transactions you do, you'll have that locked in with your payment provider. Or there's the IC plus interchange plus and then plus our margin. So that's a little bit more transparent to a merchant. They can actually see what we're as Ecommpay are making as a profit and what's our charge. And also then it's more relative to basket values and to total transaction throughout the year. So it kind of works in line, just to be a little bit more transparent, and can fluctuate, but it still gives you a good idea enough to budget, plan, and think of growth through payment as an organic growth strategy, right? That's which many merchants don't think of. We just think it's a necessity. We need someone to buy our goods. There's no point having an e-commerce store otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's about changing the mindset and a bit of education. Blended's very much legacy pricing, and we're now seeing more merchants go onto the IC plus.
Okay. So what I mean, a lot of this stuff is sounds quite exciting from a customer's point of view that you've got all these options. But what what difference can a payment provider really make to a website?
Great question. I mean, yeah, we're trying to make payment sexy again, right? It's not typically the most exciting, but yet again, as I said, crucial. So having the right payment provider, I think of it as um, a necessity, just like picking the right SEO agency, picking the right Rev Dev agency, picking the right delivery partner. All parts that influence the user journey. And that's what's crucial there, right? If you're an e-com store and you're wanting to grow in a different country, cross border, and your payment provider doesn't have, say, local APMs there, alternative payment models. So that's the likes of Satispay in Italy, that's the likes of Multibanco, that's the like of My Bank, and gosh, there's hundreds out there, right? So typically, it's about having a payment provider that can support your needs, not just having a payment provider which you can use what they have. It's about having a payment provider that will give you what you need and grow with you and look at your aspirations and how to grow. And that comes back to this growing organically for a payment strategy, right? How can I grow my business through payments? And the most simple way is looking at cross border and opening up your target market to be able to accept those payments.
Yeah, because when you need to go cross border, you've then if if you have to plug into 20 different payment providers around the world, that's 20 different things. But you're saying you could just do that with one integration with you guys?
So essentially, we're able to support merchants that are legally registered in the UK or the EEA. Now that's due to Brexit, but we can support global transactions. Yes. So for us as Ecommpay, we have to work with a merchant that's based within those areas due to licensing. So we're licensed under the FCA for the UK and the Bank of Cyprus for EU. But yes, essentially, so to your question, is yeah, one provider, global kind of presence.
Yeah. I mean, I love like just trying to make things simpler because I mean, even personally, I do some stuff with my own website and plugging in a million different things into it. It gets really tricky like really
The
quickly.
the the, the amount of like the WordPress plugin scenario, I remember that back
Well,
in my agency days, and they counteract each other, and it can become quite a tedious task to figure out where it's gone wrong.
yeah, just keeping track of stuff like plugging some email newsletter thing into something else over here, but Zapier does something. It's just, yeah, it gets tricky. I love the fact that you talked about making the customer journey like really easy. Like, and I know you go to lots of events around the country. Like, have you seen any other tools in your journey that have impressed you that can help with that customer journey alongside your stuff?
Yes, I mean the ecosystem with e-commerce is vast. Um, I typically really like what Dot Digital are doing currently at the moment, becoming um, a CX platform essentially, right? Being able to manage your customer experiences, whether that's through live chat, your email. Um, so yeah, really great kind of process there within the customer journey, right? Because the customer journey doesn't just finish after the payment, right? You also want that recurring coming back customer. So really being able to nurture your consumers and being able to segment, who are your key returners, so to speak. And understanding the market and bringing that data into, oh, okay, we are getting more and more year on year returning customers. Maybe we need to look into a subscription, okay? Um, and having that ability to then go to your payment provider and say, look, can we enable subscriptions? We want to try something new. We're seeing we're getting this data from Dot Digital, for example. Want to understand more on how does that work? What do the fees look like? So we can explore that further. So that's kind of one tool. My other favorite, I mean, is the foundation. It's my love for coming into e-commerce, and that's BigCommerce. They've done a lot of development within their platform, with the launch of Catalyst, MakeSwift as well, and really it's about making not just the customer journey easier, but also the end user, the merchant, right? And that's what we're trying to do here is kind of simplify both so that there's a harmony there.
Yeah. So you mentioned data there. There's obviously data coming in from lots of different places. Do you like add data into like all these different platforms too? Then
So yeah, I mean, data is key. Without accurate data and reporting, you kind of flying blind, right? What we do offer, right, is a merchant dashboard. Now, not all payment providers, believe it or not, will give this to um, their end users, to the merchant. Sometimes there's an incurred fee for extra abilities or whatnot. And what we do there is we give real time insight, customizable reporting, but also now the ability to design your own payment page, make it on brand. Very legacy wise, you'll find merchants that were using hosted payment pages, and that's that two-step payment page process, checkout process, sorry, where you go to your basket, go to checkout, a new window opens, and typically you'll see the payment gateway logo up there, typically starting with maybe a W sometimes, which I guess we know which one that is. And then very bland card details there. You use sorry, not username, name on card, sort code, etc., CV3, and then maybe you'll do your 3DS on there as well. So we're able to actually make that more branded. So it's still part of that user journey, and it increases that security and just, I suppose, from an end user point of view, just you feel more trust in doing that, right? And understanding that that payment's going to go there, but also then understanding kind of how to tweak your fraud settings. And we have AI within our dashboard, and we have humans behind, right, the AI, so to speak, right? So that's with our chargeback management, with our fraud settings. So we all have that ability to give to the merchant to support them through analyzing and understanding their data, right? Because if we think some merchants are in their scale, right, and the only person that looks after their e-commerce site is an e-commerce manager who's responsible for the stock, the design, the marketing, the payment, and typically they're not the most payment orientated person. So sometimes having someone to be able to decipher that information and understand it, give you an understanding of how to best use that, is always going to be really useful. But on the flip side, more enterprise merchants, you may actually have an individual dedicated to payments. But being advocate for both with our data, essentially for our merchant dashboard.
There's two things I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because you talked about how you integrate a payment onto a website now. What difference do you think that makes to conversion rates?
So good question. Typically, going back to user journey again, we want one-step processes. We don't want to be going to different pages. We don't want long scrolling. We want one page, simple, see what we're ordering, put the payment details in. That has quite a dramatic influence on the conversion rate, right? So I say to a lot of individuals that are running CRO agencies or even merchants, I say, make sure that you're looking at the checkout, audit the checkout, because understanding what's going on there will help, right? Can they see the logo clearly of like the Google and Apple Pay, their preferred payments? Are they listed at the top, right? As global payments. If you're cross-border, make sure that the payment options locally are listed at the top, right? Because if they're all the way down, so you could offer 10 different payment options, which may not all fit on one screen without scrolling, so to speak. So making sure that it's customizable for each merchant depending on IP address or not, right? Does that answer your question now? I think with
Yeah,
UX and UI being part of the kind of ability to increase conversion, because also that can decrease the conversion, right? Especially with two-step checkout, right? Where you can't sometimes help that now, especially for merchants that don't have PCI documentation, and that's the accreditation and ability to host the card data. Where we can help with that is actually bring our iframe into a checkout page. So that's still us hosting that, and it's still on the one-page checkout. And some of our CMS plugins we have embedded checkouts, so that also helps. But going back then to the design page designer for a hosted payment page, so typically your smaller merchants that haven't gone through that accreditation yet for PCI, having that branding and keeping everything smooth, seamless. It's nothing's ever perfect, right? But you've got to try and make it as perfect as possible. So sometimes just being able to change that color to your brand color and having your logo up there will make a difference. Whereas if you're bringing it to a second checkout page with the card details or your payment options and it's not on brand, I mean, typically I know myself, I've gone to websites and I've not seen a Visa, I've not seen the MasterCard logos down there, and I'm like, and I think, and I go away and I won't. I'll do some research, and all that again is abandoned cart issues, right?
yeah.
And they don't sometimes come back. So it's about you can't control others, but you can influence others,
Yeah.
and it's about having as much influence as possible.
Well, it's about when if you feel that something's not quite right, then that's when you'll just walk away. And that leads me back on to the other thing I wanted to talk about, which was like the fraud issues, because everything's getting more complicated and everything is now across the world. There's more people trying to commit fraud. What kind of tools have you got in your arsenal that you can
Yeah,
stop that?
really good question. So fraud's inevitable, right? I recently went to a seminar regarding payments. I can't quite remember the number now, but it's within the billions of how much fraud costs the payment industry, right? But yet we're still in it; it's still profitable, us as a business, and essentially we can't run away from it. But we can do is build our best firewall, so to speak. So with us, we have an AI kind of powered risk and fraud management built in within our with our dashboard. But like I said again, with real humans behind it. So chargeback management. Um, we have a chargeback management team that will review every chargeback to try and ensure the authenticity of that, and try and win that for them, so they're not coming out of a fee and having to return, right? Because chargebacks will cost money. Chargeback, just to understand, is the kind of stage after refund, right, where you've had a payment come in out of your bank, and you're like, don't recognize this, don't know this, or you paid something and you haven't received something, you can't get a refund. And chargebacks bringing that up through the card network, so with your Visa, with your MasterCard, etc. And that will incur fees for the merchant as well as us as a payment provider. So it's really critical to kind of understand fraud, us as a business, and we're doing a lot in our compliance side to understand that, not just from a consumer, but also for merchants as well, because there's also merchants out there that aren't legitimate merchants. So it's about understanding and doing your KYC and your due diligence there. Yes, it's a growing market. A lot of AI is coming into it, but I think it's really crucial that we have that human part to also understand and support the growth further of where we need the AI to support us.
And you link nicely on to, like, you talk about support for merchants. Like, what does the support from you guys look like in terms of like helping merchants? Like, how quickly can they get answers to questions and just feel like they're working with someone rather than just paying someone some cash and then running away?
Yeah, no, exactly. I think this is why I like partnerships, right? Because partnerships can also be transactional, and that's very much how we are here at Ecommpay from a merchant point of view, with our merchants. So, gosh, where do I start? So we have a business development team which will work with merchants, and that's about using payments as an organic growth strategy, right? How can we unlock more growth for them through new APMs, um, making their payment page look pretty, if needed, right? And then the ability to work with our partners as well. So I always like those cases where we've got Ecommpay as a Rusty Monkey and the merchant on collaborating together on how can we boost the CRO, how can we boost the ROAS, right, of merchants sometimes, right? Using checkout as a crucial part. um, you've got kind of onboarding team. We're bringing in digitalization with our onboarding, just making that really seamless, and really easy for kind of merchants onboarding, because that can be a tedious task. But then we've got technical team that are out there 24/7, that are able to help. So forget about Black Friday worries, forget about peak worries. We're always doing our best to keep the system up, and also then on a high level for each merchant as well. And we're always there to support that. If a merchant wants to bring in a new booking platform, for example, say it's a travel merchant, and that data from the booking platform needs to then go to us as Ecommpay. We'll have that conversation. We'll come into those and say, right, we can, we can't, we will integrate, and this is the best way possible. And we'll have the IT guys in there, and that's kind of really crucial with us at Ecommpay. We're 3/4 actual tech specialists within the business, and that's what makes us different. We put the tech inside of fintech, so having that ability there, but also that layman understanding that we can provide to merchants that maybe aren't tech.
I think, yeah, it's really important. Like when we've done e-commerce sites, and just to have that backup of different tech partners coming together who are on the merchant side, because you can get in a room with a big commerce person and a Rusty Monkey person and a Ecommpay person, and just have chats about something and make things like really simple. So I think that's a really important part. So rather than just buying a service and just going, right, I think we can plug this in, and you're just sitting the other side trying to figure out how to make it work. It's a real collaborative thing. So,
Yes.
but just to finish up, what do you think's exciting for the future? Any predictions? Stick your neck out.
I'm seeing gaming becoming a big part of loyalty, which is quite exciting. Something crucial to think here is we see payments as just pay in, right? Paying the merchant for the goods. But with this ability of loyalty, sometimes, right, earning cash or earning cash back, you have to pay out as well, which is something that is not always thought about, and an ability that we can provide with Ecommpay. So that's really interesting, this kind of gamification loyalty aspect of it. The rise of wallets and BNPLs. It's sometimes a bit of a, how do I say it? Sometimes you do want to offer BNPL, right? But then what the market says, and it fluctuates, right, because of this consumer morality about it, right? Is it the best? Do we want to be putting people into debt essentially that might not be able to afford it? So really understanding legislation that coming in with that will be quite crucial. But yeah, I'm liking how the industry is growing. I think it's exciting that the rise of mobile commerce and also live commerce, right? The ability now to kind of have that live TV, like TV shopping channels back from 90s, and I mean they're still going now, but having that on the go, right, from a social media point of view, Gen Z, and being able to see someone try it on, and have real people come, like, live feeds, being able to say, oh, I love that, and get other people's, and it's a new experience. And with that, making it one step further is the rise of AR. With Google, Apple, and I think Google also have brought out some lenses, of being able to kind of have that immersive feel once, in a retail environment is mind blowing and quite interesting.
I mean, it's just great that everything's coming back to being from the customer's point of view rather than us sat there going, please buy this stuff. And it's a very different prospect when people think about it from the customer's point of view. Go, well, how does this make it feel? And
I think the crucial point here is that we all, whether we're part of a tech or part of an agency, we're all consumers ourselves, and sometimes we really forget how to put ourselves back into that consumer shoes, so to speak, when we're looking at a user journey. And sometimes it's just, you got to think outside the box and be like, haha, right, put normal Dylan shoes on, or put normal Chris shoes on. How would I like to see it, right? It's really crucial there.
Great. Well, Dylan, you're going to be at the Big Huddle event and sponsoring that, which is great, on the 24th of April in Broadway Cinema in Nottingham.
Absolutely can't wait. Absolutely love Nottingham. Be great to see you guys again, and the other sponsors as well as the attendees. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm Dylan Fernandez. Anyone that wants to reach out, wants to have a chat, whether that's about partnering or whether just understanding and having a bit more of an informal conversation, find me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation.